Hey Steve, good evening.
I am here.
Oh, Steve, sorry for the delay. I was facing some connectivity issue, and Steve, today we may not have Eric joining, so it's going to be you and me to go on with the session.
Okay.
Okay. So you found some time to look into the books. How was your day in the sense of office activities?
Just another typical day in paradise.
Okay. So look like every day is a firefighting day for you. Is it so?
I I'm busy sun up to sundown. I mean, I've always got something going on. I got my different
Oh,
crews running, so I mean, I've always got
okay.
some kind of a fire I'm fighting. Always got
Okay.
something going down.
Oh. So how many projects are running simultaneously for you?
Right now, I've got six.
Oh man, six is so high.
Yeah, I've got six. I've got six crews out running and six crews out working, and I got six
Mm-hmm.
projects going.
Yeah, six is a bit high. I believe 3 to 4 is manageable. More
Yeah,
than that, it is a bit heavy.
it gets to be a bit crazy.
Oh yeah, I
So
can
yeah, my
understand.
phone, and because I'm on Mountain Time right now,
Mm-hmm.
and all my crews are on Central Time. And my
Okay.
phone starts ringing at like 5:30 in the morning, and it doesn't generally stop until about 9 o'clock at night here. Yeah, oh yeah. So
Oh, okay. That's crazy. I know it's not that easy. And out of that six projects, at least two will be critical or three will be critical,
three would be
right?
good. Yeah, I mean, four is kind. 3 to 4 is kind of a comfort zone.
Mm,
Um, Five
yeah,
starts getting to be six. I mean, six is a pain. Six
yeah,
gets
too high.
really stressful because I mean
Too high.
it's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
consuming. And then the projects are,
Mm,
I've got projects going for three different carriers. I mean, I got two crews down in Texas that are working on AT&T,
okay.
and then I've got a crew in Iowa working on
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
T-Mobile and Sprint, and then I've got two crews working down in Missouri that are doing Sprint. So I got three different carriers I'm dealing with and six crews. So yeah, it definitely has its days.
Yeah, you should be a superhuman to do that. Okay. Yeah. See, when I work with couple of managers, as I see more than 4 projects, it's get tougher. So as we cross through this PMP course, some of the managers started implementing the stakeholder plan, communication plan in the day-to-day life, and they were able to see some difference in a sense of timeline balancing, in a sense of getting some benefit out of it. Specifically, they use a communication plan. Of course, having 6 projects, you should be in touch with n number of people on a day in day out basis. So they maintain a stakeholder list, they maintain a communication plan so that they can save a little bit time, and that saves some energy. So I would recommend you to start utilizing the stakeholder plan and communication plan in your project, and slowly you'll start seeing some difference. Because as you're saying, if morning's 5:30, the call starts. Okay, it's a big thing for you, right? The whole day goes there. You may not have time for your family or time for yourself. That's going to be tough. Right. Okay, cool. What we'll do is we'll get in. What are things we're going to cover today? We're going to touch with risk management and procurement management. So totally we have 10 knowledge areas in PMP, which we have covered so far 7, and we have 3 more to be covered. The 3 more are going to be the risk, and it's going to be of procurement. Procurement is our vendoring part. We have risk management, which talks about how much of risk we have. And the next sessions, we will have integration management, which is going to connect all the 9 knowledge areas we learn together. And finally, we'll talk about agile concepts. So this is the plan we have. So we'll go with the risk and procurement. So when you say risk, yeah. So Steve, how much you feel a project would have risk?
How much what?
What is the risk you see in a project generally? When it is a project, what are the risks you comes up in your mind?
Well, you've got I guess you're gonna have trying to think how to say it. You're gonna have your personnel working on the project.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Their schedules, their timelines,
Perfect.
them running. I guess more distributed a project gets across more
Mm-hmm.
people,
Mm-hmm.
obviously your risks go up because now you've got more areas where you can run into you've got more points of failure.
Right. Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
then you've
Yeah.
got and then if you're working with outside vendors,
Mm-hmm.
now you've got potential issues with outside vendors,
Right.
delays, weather.
Right.
Depending upon, I guess a lot of your risk,
Mm-hmm.
the risk that you are gonna see is dependent entirely upon
Mm-hmm.
the type of project you're working on. With Eric working on software projects, uh,
Right.
weather really wouldn't be a risk for him.
Right. You're right.
Whereas my projects are all outdoors, weather is a
Yes.
huge variable and a huge risk for me.
Perfectly. Perfectly. You made it very much perfect, Steve. Yeah. When you said Steve, IT software projects and it's a non-software projects, you were differentiating it. Yes, absolutely right. The risk is there in every project, and risk will be there from the beginning until the last minute of the project. You cannot tell that a project will have risk only in this particular timeline. The moment we start the project, the risk starts with that. Until you close the project, it will be with the project. Now, the difference goes between the high priority and low priority. So, based on that, we allocate a time and budget for that particular risk. You rightly said that your project has a higher risk on weather condition. So, if you feel that's the highest priority and it's a higher possibility or probability of happening, we are going to spend a good amount of energy there. When I say good amount of energy, it is nothing but creating a strategy how to tackle it. And the strategy is called in PMI term as mitigation plans. Definitely, we have risk in our life, in our personal life, and we take either a health insurance or life insurance, or we take insurance for the car, or if you go by a vehicle, you wear a seat belt in the car. It's a risk mitigation plan. When you drive a two-wheeler, you wear proper helmet or cover for you, and that's again risk mitigation, right? So you do some exercises to keep your body fit. So it's again a risk mitigation plan. In a day in day out, we keep using a lot of risk mitigation plans. Some risks we were able to attend, some risks we couldn't attend. We know that it's a risk, but still we do it. So now, if it is an individual, that's good. We can manage it. But when it comes to an organization, when it comes to a project, there should be a very systematic plan to handle it. If not, it may derail the project. And the risk is very much very much vulnerable in the sense very much it's going to hit the project straight away if it is not properly planned and tackled it. And in PMP, we have something called risk management. In this risk management, we will identify the list of risk which could happen in a project. When I say which could, it's going to be purely of imagination or purely of expertise knowledge, domain knowledge, through which we list the risk in a chart. After listing the risk, we will start putting priority for it, high, mid, and low. After putting high, mid, and low, we take the highest risk, which is possibility and probability of happening is very high, and start writing strategies for it. When you say strategy, how to handle if such a risk comes out. And this strategy will be of a description saying that if in case as a heavy rain or a heavy weather condition, what and how the work will happen, and how the sales will happen, how the project will continue. That strategy will be written down. For this strategy, definitely we have to pump in some dollars, and this won't come from our pockets. It should come from our sponsors. So your sponsor should agree this risk as a high risk. Then only they'll release the fund. So as a manager, as a leader, we should be able to clearly have an idea what is this risk all about, why it is high priority, and we should convince or give a better explanation to our sponsors where they release the fund for it. When we do that, it is called as contingency reserve. The contingency reserve talks about the known risk. If you remember it, in scope management or in cost management, we're talking about it. Fortunately, unfortunately, missed that cost management session. If you listen to the video, there we spoke about a contingency reserve. That is a known risk. There is something called known risk and unknown risk. What I'll do, let me put here. Um, okay, this is whenever you see a word risk, unknown means it is nothing but risk. By the way, Steve, you're able to see the screen, what I'm typing?
Yep.
Okay. This is okay, and there is something called okay. If you see, there are two sentences I put over here. One is known unknown, other one is unknown unknown. I'll first go with the first one. This we discussed in the cost management. Whenever you see a word unknown unknown, it means unknown means the word goes for the risk. Known unknown, when you know there is a risk, where you can pronounce it as a risk, when you can write it in a charter as a risk, when you register as a risk, it is called as known risk. You know this risk could happen in the project, as you say, weather condition, or you take any sports activity, talk about the weather, there could be a chaos, a crowd, or there could be ground, there is a problem, or in any other project, there is a shortage of car budget, or there is a timeline risk. And when you know these risks, and this risk can be written down properly and well and explained to our stakeholders, the fund will be allocated for doing that risk or attending that risk. And that is called as contingency reserve. And there is another category where you don't know this risk. You can't even predict it. Only when it happens, you know that it is a risk. So, but for that, we can't keep it aside. We have to allocate some fund for it. And when you have some unknown risk, that is which could happen, for which any organization will allocate some amount of budget, that's called management reserve. For example, here if you have a known risk, you will say that whether you know what can happen. Second, you will say that there could be resource unavailability. There could be some delay in material. So each risk you will allocate some mitigation plan of dollars 40. Here allocate some dollars of 350. Delay in material, I have to buy new material going to be of 1,500 or $2,300, and this is called contingency reserve. Now this unknown, you don't know what it at all. So what we do is management allocate 10% of the overall budget as a risk mitigation plan. I don't know what kind of risk can happen here. So the organization which is performing the project will allocate 10% of overall project budget or 5% of overall project budget as a risk mitigation plan. And this will be utilized only a risk happens which is not listed here. You have like this register will have hundreds of risks. A risk which comes out of this not happened here, and we don't even know what kind of risk that is. Then we will take this fund and utilize it. So I'll start with this here and I'll get into the subject to give more clarity. Okay, here what we're going to see, the risk which we are going to see is here. You have the risk um, mitigation plans. What are we going to have here is you'll have a manage risk, identify risk, perform qualitative risk, quantitative risk, and risk response. Its font is not good here. What I do is I'll take here. Okay. If you see here, in risk management, there are good amount of items will be there in planned risk management. And, wait, okay. I believe the visibility is good now.
Yeah.
So we have, yeah, we have something called planned risk management, how we are going to do the risk handling factors. Then we have very important factor called as identify risk. This identify risk talks about how you're going to list out the risk in your project. As you were saying, some of the risk in your project, the same way, each project will have its own respective risk. We will list down all the risk in a register. A register could be a document, could be of Excel sheet or a Word document, or could be a plain paper, where write it down the list of risks. After writing down, we have to rank it, which is high, mid, and low. How to do that? We have two methodologies for that. That is called qualitative and quantitative. So these two methodologies will be used to put in a rank. After ranking is done, we have to write a response strategy. What if this particular risk happens? How to tackle it? That will be written down here. After doing that, this is happening in the planning phase. In the execution phase, there is a probability the risk could happen. Whatever risk we put in the identify risk may or may not happen. It is not mandatory it should happen. It's a prediction, so it may or may not happen. If it really happens, what to do? We take the plan what we written here and that will be implemented here. The plan we written down here, a risk happens, what I have to do, then we implement it here. For example, we travel in a flight or yeah, we go by flight to travel from one city to other city. Now, when you board in the flight, you would see there'll be a flight attendant who is helping you to show some of the actions. That is, wear your seat belt, or if there is a lack of oxygen, there'll be a mask coming down from the upper layer. And in case of anything emergency, you have to exit the this particular path. Steve, have you observed in the flight they show some actions to you?
When
Uh,
they,
yeah.
yeah,
When you board in the flight, there'll be a attendant who is helping you with some actions, what need to be done. Have you observed it?
yeah. When you get on a flight, yeah, they tell you to put your bag up in the overhead compartments.
Okay, that's one. Then what else he or she will be telling you?
Put your seat, sit down, put your belt, set your seat belt on, and
Perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. Anything on emergency they communicate to us?
Anything on what?
On emergency, what we have to do? Will they communicate?
Oh, yeah. Yep. They'll do the whole spiel. You watch the lights on the floor, exits here and there, and
Perfect. Perfect. You observed it really well.
yep.
So that is, yeah, that is purely a risk mitigation plan. See, what happened is the flight or aviation industry, they found out these are the high risk which can happen in a flight. So they identified the risk in a register. They made an analysis on that and put a high, mid, and low. In that, they found the highest risk is if in case a flight get into a problem, or it is getting it's dropping inside in the ocean or in a water layer. What need to be done? And that is what risk response written down. The response is nothing but when there is a fire, when there is a problem in the flight, you should crawl down and get out of the exit, which is going to be here. And if there is a lack of oxygen, you have to use the oxygen mask, which is going to be above your head, right? And these are the risk mitigation plans written down very general way to every passenger who is going to come in this flight. And that mitigation plan is being explained. That doesn't mean that every time it's going to happen, but they'll explain to us. In case that happens, you have to implement it. So that is what we see in the screen now. So you have identified the risk, you have made a ranking, and then you written down the response. The response is how to handle it, and that will be implemented in case it happens, right? And we have one more thing called as monitor risk. In monitor risk, we'll keep a watch how the risk may happen through and how we mitigated it. Have we mitigated in a way which we have written down or something went wrong there? So we keep a control of it. So that's nothing but monitor risk. So this is a process which you're going to see here. Let me take you further in. Okay, here it goes. So risk. If you read the definition here, risk is an uncertain event or condition that, if it occurs, as a positive or negative effect on one or more of a project objectives. One thing I have to put out here, a risk can be positive or negative. Unfortunately, we have been sometimes told that risk means always negative. It's not that way. Risk can be positive as well. For example, this PMP session, you took a risk of spending your time and learning it. And that's a positive risk you're taking on to learn, to gain some certificate and also gain some benefit out of it. And same way, it can be negative also. You may be missing some of your office calls. You may be missing some of your timelines the last 1 week. So that's having some negative impact as well. Every risk what we take will have a positivity as well negative. Now, if there is a positivity, we have to try to increase the positivity and try to decrease the negativity. Being in a managerial role or leadership role, we'll be expected to see the action what we make, every action will have some risk. At the same time, we should try to increase the positivity. So a risk will have both positive and negative, both. So that's a very important point. So if you read down here, they talk about individual project risk is an uncertain event or condition. I want to mention the uncertain event. If it occurs as a positive or negative effect on one or more project objectives, it's not only one, it'll have a ripple effect. It'll have more in different activities. So risk, if it doesn't happen, it's good. If it happens, what need to be done? That's what we are learning here. So first thing, we have to plan the risk management. When I say plan, you will take a charter. Why we take a charter is charter will have a high level risk information which we record at the beginning of the project. Like you got the bullet train, which has the highest level of information, there the highest risk will also be recorded. What could happen in a project? And we are taking all the components of the plan. We are take a schedule plan, cost plan, and we take a procurement plan. Every plan will be inside this to see what need to be done when a risk comes over. And I'm taking a stakeholder register. The reason being is my stakeholder will have some risk averseness. My stakeholder will have some risk threshold. Beyond that, they may not go. So I need to know whom I'm handling the project. What is their limitation? What is their risk taking capability? Based on that, I have to derive a plan. If you see further here, I have stakeholder analysis. This we did on the first day. On the first day, we did a stakeholder analysis to understand who is our stakeholder, what is their capability, what is their capacity. These factors we understood. Now we see that plan again to make sure who is our stakeholder. See, as a person who is running the project, I may be good in taking risk, but that doesn't mean that my client also will have the same capability. I should talk to my client and understand, hey, what is your threshold of taking a risk? How far you can go? So we should understand that because every organization differ on their way of handling a risk. Some go very high risk, some will stop at the moderate level. They'll tell that no, we may not proceed on. It's our organization policy. We'll have a threshold. I'll show what is threshold or what is the scale. But before that, we have to understand that risk is not only decided by the managers. We have to consider our client as well. What is their threshold for taking risk? When you do that, a plan will get ready in the sense of understanding how the risk will be handled. I'll take you further in. A risk can happen in multiple areas. And I say multiple areas, you see here technical risk, management risk, commercial, or external. So I'm just putting high level grouping here. It could be fall under any category. So you cannot tell only a particular category. It can fall another any category of risk. Here, I wanted to show you a scale, and this is called as risk probability and impact scale. How they do this is every organization will have a set of, as I said, threshold or limit until which they can take a risk. They put a scale which is called a high, which is called mid, which is called low. If you see the scale here, on the leftmost, you'll see very high, high, medium, low, and very low. And also the probability of happening. If something happens 70%, the probability of happening is above 70%, and its impact in three areas. When I say impact, you'll see a time, cost, quality. They'll watch out how much impact it will bring in. If it brings a time delay of 6 months and the cost overrunning of a $5 million and quality is going to have a major impact, and that's called very high risk. A very high risk for a company is when the probability of happening is 70%. And this is not a defined one, it differs. When I say 70%, the organization where you are doing 70% is a high, whereas the organization where I am doing 50% could be high. It differs. So the organization where we perform, we come out to the scale like this, telling what is the highest probability of happening and what is the very high for us, what is very low for us. And the organization defines it for even each project. As now Steve is doing 6 projects, doesn't mean that all the 6 projects will follow the same scale. Each project can come out with their own scale. They tell that whenever something crosses 35 to 45%, we call it as very high. Could be, we don't know. So, but thing is, we have to write a definition like this, and this is the impact. Impact is on 3 areas, that is on time, cost, and quality. If you note on one more point here, it has a sign called, it has a sign used for positive and negative. So a risk means it doesn't mean it will be only always negative. It can be positive also. So it can be a gain of 6 months time. It could be a gain of $5 million. It could be a gain of good quality. So we should understand every project or every activity will have some positivity and negativity. So now how we are going to enhance the positivity and decrease the negativity coming up. So this is the probability impact matrix scale. And this is defined for each project by the performing organization. Now let's start with identifying the risk. Identify risk is a process of identifying individual project risk as well as sources of overall project risk and documenting their characteristics. How they do it? Simple. If you see here, I put a list. This is from the PMP book. What we do in the leftmost is you take all the plans. If you see, almost every plan is here. You'll have a schedule, scope, resource, quality, cost. Every information is taken inside because the aim is to find the list of risk in the project. That is called as risk register. You see a word here, risk register. Risk register is a document which will have a list of risk. So what all will be there? It'll have a number, it'll have a risk mention and category. It'll have the high, mid, and low, and mitigation plan. So this all be put together. They'll have a risk. They'll have which category it falls under. What is it? High, mid, and low, or what is the mitigation plan? And that will be inside the risk register, right? So risk register will help a particular team to understand what all risk can happen in the project. So we take all the plans, we take the issues. Issue log is meant for human factor. Whenever there is a conflict, or there is a misunderstanding, there is a confusion in the team, and that's also recorded in the issue logs. And we have resource requirements. There could be a possibility that resource unavailability can happen. A resource delay can happen. When I say resource, can be of material or human resource. We should understand that resource can bring in some risk. We should understand a vendor part can bring in some risk, like agreements, procurements. This also can bring some risk. So we understand that part. So risk can happen in any part of the project. So we are considering every information along with SWOT analysis. What is SWOT analysis? By any chance, Steve, you're aware of that? What is a SWOT analysis?
SWOT. I'm not sure what SWOT analysis is. Strength, weakness.
Yeah, you got it.
Um,
All right. And we go for, and right, have you seen this?
okay. Yep.
So he talks about strength, weakness, and we talk about opportunities. Okay, now what is the strength? What is the opportunity? What is the threat? We should have idea about it. In a sense, as being in a leadership position in our organization, as we are being in the project, we should know what is the strength of an organization, what is the weakness of the organization, what is the opportunity of the organization. Why because a strength of an organization will bring opportunity. A weakness of an organization can bring threat to the threat. So we know our organization has a good liquidity that can bring some strength, that can bring more opportunity. We can buy new projects, we can buy new material, we can get a new resources as we want. Weakness: a organization is not having goodwill in the market. Our organization is not recognized a brand in the market. That's the weakness, and that can bring some threat in the sense of you may not able to sell the product as you want. You may not able to place yourself in a top position. So an organization will have analysis on SWOT to understand what all risks can happen in a project, right? That's what it is. What I'll do is I'll show a short video what actually the risk factor look like. That will help you to see a little more clarity before we move to next level. So what I do, I just take you that computer sound. What I do, okay, let's understand the risk factor here.
Hello and welcome to this video on risk. We're going to have a look at what risk is and take a look at how to use a risk matrix. First of all, what is risk? Now, if you think about it, life is full of risks. From the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep, and even in between. For example, there are risks associated with breathing. Did you know that air pollution causes about 7 million deaths each year? There are risks associated with eating. Foodborne illness causes about 420,000 deaths each year. And then there's traveling. Road accidents cause over 3,000 deaths each day. In fact, every day we have to make constant decisions about the risks we face. Now, there are situations in which we need to know what the risk is from certain events so that appropriate action can be taken. For example, what's the risk to health from a new influenza virus, an industrial chemical accident, or a bushfire? But first, what exactly is risk? Risk can mean different things to different people and in different contexts. But in very simple terms, risk can be thought of as the product of how likely someone is to be exposed to something bad, a hazard, and the consequence, which is how bad the outcome will be. Let's have a look at an example. Say you have to cross a road and you're trying to figure out what the risk associated with this is. Let's take a look at some different scenarios. In the first scenario, our hazard is a bicycle. Let's assume there are only bicycles allowed on this road. Let's also assume that the road is not that busy and there's only one bicycle every 5 minutes on that road. Now, because bicycles don't go on that road very often, the likelihood of the bicycle crashing into you is low, right? If the bicycle does crash into you, the consequence of that would be relatively low, wouldn't it? So in this scenario, the likelihood and the consequence are both low. Therefore, the overall risk is low. Now obviously, if there are bicycles traveling more frequently, the likelihood of a crash would be higher. But the consequence, if a bicycle did crash into you, would still be low. But what if things were different? Let's change that bicycle to a truck. Now with a truck passing every 5 minutes, the likelihood of a crash would still be low. However, the consequence is far more severe. Now, imagine if it was a busy truck route and trucks were going on this road very frequently. In this scenario, both the likelihood of a crash and the consequence will be high, which means that the overall risk would be high. You wouldn't even consider crossing this road, right? A simple way of visualizing this and figuring out the overall level of risk is by using a risk matrix. In a risk matrix, information about consequence and likelihood can be used to determine the overall level of risk. Let's have a look at a simple risk matrix. A risk matrix is basically a table or grid with a measure of likelihood.
Yeah, Steve, I just want to put back here, this risk matrix is used to find out the risk at a high, mid, and low. We'll be using this in a qualitative and quantitative risk analysis. Just take a view how its matrix getting framed, right? That will be helpful for you.
Okay.
Likelihood on one side and consequence on the other, graded from low to high. The combination of the two, which is the overall level of risk, can be categorized as low, medium, or high and color-coded. So let's get back to our example. In the scenario in which there are bikes traveling very infrequently, the likelihood is low and the consequence is low. Therefore, the overall risk is low. When there are more bikes, the likelihood is high, but the consequence is still low, and therefore the overall risk is medium. Let's consider the truck now. In the scenario where trucks are infrequent, the likelihood of a crash is low, but the consequence is high. The overall risk is medium. And if it's a busy truck route, the likelihood and consequence are both high, and therefore the overall risk is high. So that's how a risk matrix can be used to determine the overall level of risk using an assessment of likelihood and consequence. There are many different types of matrices in use with varying degrees of complexity. They can have many categories and different grades of risk. They may also have different ways of defining categories of likelihood and consequence. For example, a high likelihood may mean that it's expected to occur in most circumstances, and a low likelihood may mean that it may occur only very rarely, such as once in 100 years. With consequence, a high consequence may mean multiple deaths, and a low consequence may mean only minor injuries. So, the risk matrix and the categories that are used can vary, and therefore should be relevant to the situation and context in which the risk assessment is done. Regardless of this, risk matrices follow the same principle. Although risk matrices have their limitations, such as being subjective, not being consistently interpreted, and not taking time frames into consideration, they are a useful and practical tool to categorize risk. And that's an introduction to risk and how to use and interpret a risk matrix.
Okay, Steve, you got some idea about what we are trying to say here? I believe Steve will be able to follow with the risk being explained.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, the point here we're trying to say is a risk is evident in any project in every dimension of the project. At the same time, you should have a systematic flow of identifying and also putting in a group of high, mid, and low. So why I was showed that video is to make you understand that there is something called aligning at a high, mid, and low. How to do it? We're going to see that. So something called SWOT analysis. I think we talked about it: strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. And a risk register will have some components. The risk register will have a list of identified risks, and it will have potential risk owners and a list of potential risk response. These are three key factors expected in a risk register. A risk register is nothing but a document, a document kind of Excel sheet, which you will have these three components as a mandatory one. The rest you can add more, but these three are very important. You should have a list of risks which can happen in the project. Who can be a owner of it? What do you mean by owner is the person who should take responsibility if that risk happens to apply the plan what we are discussed. And list of potential risk responses. Here we write the response, what action will be taken on. A risk register may look like this. I'm not sure you've seen it in your project or another project, but a risk register something can be something like this, where um, you will have some sort of names, and you will have impact, you will have the probability of happening. If you see here it's a 60%, here it is a 20%, the chances of happening, right? And impact is nothing but the consequence. If you have seen the video, they gave us likelihood and consequence. Likelihood is nothing but the probability of happening. Consequence is nothing but the impact. Here in project, impact will go in three areas, that is on the schedule, that is a time, cost, and quality. How much impact it will give. And if you see here the mitigation plan, this is the mitigation plan. If you see there's a paragraph written here, for example, slow response time more than 2.5 seconds. A website is taking slow response time. For example, this morning or this evening, I had a problem with the Zoom where I'm unable to connect. So it's a risk there. If I couldn't connect, it's going to be a problem. But I retried by rebooting my PC and see it's connecting. Now, if you feel that that's a risk and you record it as, and the probability of happening is above 60%, and the impact is going to be for two audience, right? And now what happened is they're asking for a mitigation plan. The plan says that buy another server which can handle the expected user load of 20 parallelly. So buy means you have to spend some money for it, $3,400. Now the sponsor should allocate some fund for this, saying that okay, if a server goes down, we should be ready enough for the next server, whether allocate fund for it. And when you write a plan like this should be approved by the stakeholders also. And this is called mitigation plan. And this will be implemented when such scenario happens. Now, point here to be observed is a risk mitigation is based on the probability and impact matrix. You understand how high probability it is based on which we write a effective plan. And a risk register may look like this. It's not this is how it should be. It's one of the thing which I pulled out, but it can be even simple also. It can have only few lines explaining what it is all about. If I go back, a risk register, yeah, these three are very important. List of identified risk owners, response. This three is enough. But we see this sample, they have multiple, 1, 2, 3, it goes on a lot of items, but actually it enough with name, impact, probability, mitigation. That's enough. And the owner who is going to take responsibility. Now, after you put it, maybe I have to show this again. There is a ranking there in a sense of what's the rank, the probability of happening. Now, if you go back and show you something like qualitative risk analysis. Now, how to do the ranking? The ranking part will happen in qualitative. Qualitative is nothing but prioritizing the risk. If you see here, they put prioritizing individual on project risk for further analysis. So how you do that, I will show it. What they do here is they take the risk register which we created. The risk register is a list of risks which can happen in the project. That's been taken in, and you know the stakeholders. Who are your stakeholders? And you take the environmental factors on organizational processes which can support you with some information. Then you do the probability and impact assessment. If you remember it, a couple of slides back, I was showing the probability impact scale, which shows what is the probability of happening. If it is above 70%, what's the impact? If it is less than 50%, what is the impact? So we are going to see the impact analysis here to rank it, so that the registry will get ready with a list of numbers, a list of a rank telling when and what. And that probability impact matrix has been put over here like this. I believe you saw the video. In the video, they put a low probability of happening, medium level probability of happening, and high probability of happening. If it is high, the threat is very high. If it is low, it may not have higher threat. So if you see the scale here, they divide into two. That is the threats, other side opportunities. If you see on the leftmost is a probability of happening, and if it happens, what will be the impact? The probability always lies between 0 to 1. That is the probability of happening. If it is very high, that is 90% chances of happening. its impact is going to be 0.72. That's the very highest one. What do you mean by 0.72? That is, it'll have good impact in time, cost, and quality of the project. And this scale is not going to be a standard scale. It can be changed. The numbers will vary depending on your organization. And whenever you go to any project of any organization, they will have a scale something like this. I'll help you by reading here. Let's read these two lines. Probability and impact matrix. Prioritization rules may be specified by the organization. You want to reread it again. Prioritization rules may be specified by the organization in advance of the project and be included in organizational process assets. So every organization will have their own rules written down. What is the prioritization? For an organization working in a medical or surgical instrument and medical industry, their probability will be different. Whereas the project a company doing for a sports industry, the particular risk level will be different. If there is a project done for a bridge construction, the probability of matrix will be slightly different. So each project and each organization will have a different scale. However it is, it depends on the domain where we are. But we have to understand that there is a scale which need to be followed so that there will be some consistency in the project. Okay, let me take further in. When you put that ranking, now there is one more level which is called as quantitative risk analysis. Now, by saying high, medium, and low, your ranking system is ready. But at the same time, the sponsors may question you why we say it as a high risk. We have 15 risks in this project. Out of 15, why you pronounce this is very high? To justify and to get more understanding on that, we do something called quantitative risk analysis. Now we take a couple of high risks which a customer is interested to know about it and do quantitative. What do you mean by quantitative? You do little more data analysis on that to get the clarity how much the frequency of this risk could happen and what is the probability of happening, for which you need some data. Data doesn't come free. You have to go and you have to talk to the team, talk to the respective department and collect the details. The more you collect details about the risk and the probability of happening, it's going to be a little expensive, but at the same time, it's called as quantitative analysis. So you have a numerical basis to say that the probability of happening. If you say here, the perform quantitative risk analysis is the process of numerically analyzing. You have to watch it out. It's numerical analysis. You do a little more deep inside. If there is a baseball match being planned and there is an expectation it could rain that evening, now that's considered the highest risk for the match. Now, the actual sponsors will ask to do little more quantitative analysis on that. So they start taking the record of the last 6 months or last 6 years to identify how much it will rain in the month of February. What's the possibility of raining? If it rains, what will be the impact? And how much particular probability and what is the impact depth we have? They go a little more deep inside and get the data about the happening and the event which happened in the past. And this analysis takes some time and money. And that's again quantitative analysis. Now, ideally, what we're trying to do here, we're trying to put the ranking for the risks. That's what's happening here. By the way, Steve, do you have an opportunity to create the risk register in your projects?
Do I create what for my projects?
Have you created a risk register for your project?
No, for the projects that I do, no, I do not.
Okay. You just assume on your own and you pick a plan accordingly. That's how it goes?
Yeah, because the risks that I have in my projects, because they don't really change. I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, I should. In the summertime, they do, because in the summertime I've got. We can have infestations, so I can have, depending on where a site is, I may have an infestation of hornets.
Okay, okay,
Um,
okay.
so yeah, I mean, I've got risks I got to come up, but the risks I deal with are unique. They're different than the projects that I manage are really kind of unique in all aspects
Okay,
of
okay.
I guess what you and Eric are typically used to dealing with, where I'm not used to sitting down in a boardroom.
Yeah, I know. You got to keep moving around.
Yeah, I'm not used to sitting. I don't sit down in a boardroom with a group of 8 or 10 people and discuss these projects.
Yeah,
I pretty much,
on the field.
I've got my budget.
Uh-huh.
I've got X number of dollars that I'm getting paid by the customer,
Okay.
and I got to run my project so that I fall on the profitable side of those numbers. So it's
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And do you see some risk consistently keep happening again and again, even though you know that this will happen and you will have some plans to mitigate it, but still you feel it is falling under, right?
oh,
So,
absolutely. I've got risks that I'm on my guys about all the time. Where they're they'll
mhm.
leave they'll leave a job and call it complete, but then they won't have all of my closeout documentation.
Oh, okay.
So I've got
Okay.
things like that. I have to. What am I do to mitigate? How am I going to mitigate that risk? Well,
Okay.
a day or two before the project's due to complete, I get on the
Okay.
phone and I call them
Okay.
and I remind them, and I send out an email and I remind them through an email.
Okay.
Um, um, Things like
Understand.
it's yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
proactive on all that. So I mean, it's
Okay,
yeah,
that sounds good. I like the word proactive. Yeah, because the risk is something which you may not know how it will turn in the last minute. So we need to be a little prepared about it. I think the preparedness is what you're saying, proactiveness. Yeah, and as I think this comes out of your experience, since you are in the field for 25 years, now you
yep,
know where it will fail, where it will win, and your brain is programmed in a way to handle it very effectively. It's
right,
good. It's good actually. But there are some managers who may not have this much of experience, who may lag in experience, or who may lag in proactiveness. Some people are reactive, right? So that will put the project down. So that's the reason they prepare a risk register like this, and they put a ranking for it so that they can handle it smoothly. I feel Steve has experience which is going to help you, and people like you will be invited for the project to give a idea how to accumulate the list of risk could happen. Good, happy to know that you're handling it already.
yeah,
Good, like that we'll move forward. Now we did a quantitative analysis where we take a forecast. As you were saying that you handle the budget, you may not sit in a room and do it. You have a cost budget with you, so you know what is a cost forecast. Yeah, when it's a cost forecast, you budgeted some money, but you're expecting it can go higher or it can go down. That's the reason they talk about forecasting here. You have a risk register already with you. You have a schedule forecast also with you. When it's a schedule forecast, it talks about the timeline change. There can be new cost, there can be new timeline, and you'll also simulate some of the risk. Like in your corporates, they do fire drill. In corporates, they decide something on a disaster recovery. So these are some of the simulations. They also see what are the sensitivity of having this particular risk, and they make a understanding what are the decision to be made to move forward to handle this particular risk. Now, quantitative risk analysis is going a little deep inside the risk and understanding what is the probability of happening. When you do that, the risk reports also getting updated. Now, so far what we did is we identified the risk, we made a ranking of the risk. Now, this is all done for one particular purpose. The purpose is we have to write a response plan. You may be an expert, however it is, we have to write a plan very clearly so that it will be useful for the team. It's not for individual, it's for the team. As I was saying that in the flight, they have a mitigation plan. The plan is when there's a fire accident, how to move out of this flight, or if there is any disaster, how to handle it. And this is being written by experts in the aviation industry or flight industry. And the same way, in your project, you will be an expert. So you have to write a response plan. How to do it? You will take the risk register and some of the lessons learned which happened in the previous projects and some of the reports what we have. Now you start writing a strategy. The strategy is written, it is called as strategy for threat and strategy for opportunities. Using that, you're going to write it down. And when you write it down, that will have impact on scope, schedule, and cost. Because you're going to write a strategy means it's not just one strategy. It will talk about how to introduce a change in the scope, how to introduce an increase in the cost or time saving, something. So now strategy means you are going to plan something ahead of how to handle this particular risk if it happens. It has not happened, but if it happens, how to handle it. Let me show a scenario here. Yeah, and this picture explains the list of risks which can happen, and if it happens, how to handle it. I'll go step by step. First, let's take opportunities. You have threats also here. First, we'll take opportunities. There are certain. I'll go in order here. When you see there is a risk in your project, and that risk is going to bring some opportunities, what you do is the first thing is you try to exploit it. It's exploiting means making sure it happens. By winning this new project and by winning this new particular agreement, you're going to gain good benefit. You will make sure it happens to you. You exploit it. We know that clearing the PMP is going to be beneficial to us. So you're exploiting yourself by learning it. Even though it's a little dry and little heavy subject, you feel that I will learn it. And that's the exploit you're doing to win the opportunity. Now there is one more strategy, that is enhance. Enhance is increasing the probability of that's happening. There is a positive risk happening in a project and you feel that if it happens is benefit for you, you will write a strategy telling that make it sure it happens. That is, you enhance the probability. Exploit is, yes, I want it at any cost, no other missing out. Enhance is something you increase it, you increase the chance. For example, you are recruiting a new resource to your team and you think that a new resource coming to your team can bring more benefits. So what you do is you enhance the opportunity. You try to recruit a resource as early as possible in your team and educate this resource to the knowledge what they want. So you're trying to increase the opportunity. And third goes out of share. There are certain risks which you can take, but you can't do it at your own. So we have to go to another person or another third party to join hands with us to gain the benefit out of it. We know it's an opportunity, but at the same time, we can't do it at our own. For example, you have 6 projects. Now, seventh project is coming to you. You know it's an opportunity. Winning a seventh project is going to be gain for you, but you can't do it at your own because you are already loaded with 6 projects. Now, what do? You call another manager in your circle and tell him, you know what, I got another project now. What we do is we'll take this project, but we'll take a share of 50-50. You take 50%, I'll take 50%. Still, you don't miss the opportunity, but you try to share it with the other party. So that's again another strategy for opportunities in the risk. And there is fourth strategy which talks about accept. There are certain risks you don't need to do anything. You have to just accept it. You know it's a positive. At the same time, you can't do anything much there. You have to just wait and it falls on your lap. That's it. There is no much big strategy to be written there. You just accept it. And in recent PMP book, they introduced something called escalate, if you see here. I was talking about opportunities happening in the project for which you're going to write a strategy of exploit, enhance, share, accept. These all to handle at your level. But there are certain risks which is so huge in opportunity which you can't handle at your own. Then you have to escalate to the next level. When I say next level, it could be of portfolio managers, portfolio managers, or it could be of PMO, or it could be of program managers, right? This is the level we escalate it. It is because we can't handle it our own. As I was talking about a couple of projects, you handle it. Now another client is talking to you, telling that, hey, you know what? I'm getting a project of $1 billion. 1 billion is very huge. And they're saying that there's a new project coming up with the 1 billion. And will you be able to sign the project? You know that you can do it, but at the same time, you know that it's a little huge for you to handle it. So what do? You escalate to your upper management and you pass the message, guys, I'm getting something big here. Can you guys take a look on it? So that's going to be of escalation part. So in a risk, there are positive and negative. If it is a positivity opportunity coming up, you will try to implement one of the strategy here. You'll try to exploit. You'll write a paragraph of message telling that how to exploit that you make sure this risk comes to you and you gain benefit out of it. Enhance, increase the probability of happening, right? And that's when share. When you can't handle it your own, you share it to the other set of parties. Accept, no need to do anything, it just falls on your lap. And then the escalation, which is something passing to the upper layer when it is too huge to handle, right? Steve, you are able to follow up to this for the positive risk?
Yep.
Okay. And positive risk is good, but it's good and negative. As a manager, as a leader, you are expected to handle more on negative. Positive is a happy scenario. Sometimes people can handle it smoothly. When it comes to negative, that's where your skills will be tested. Let's see that. Okay, the first mitigation plan or first strategy is avoid. What do you mean by avoid? You see there is a risk on this action and your strategy will be avoid. For example, your customer is asking for a change in the requirement, change in the scope. You feel that if I try this particular change the customer is asking for, that can bring lot of cost impact, lot of time impact on the project, lot of quality impact on the project. Then what you do? You will have a strategy telling that avoid such kind of changes in the project. You tell that changes can be only certain limit. Beyond that, we don't accept it. So that could be of avoid. You just ignore that kind of risk happening in the project. The second strategy is mitigation. Now the same customer is insisting that no other go do the change what I said to you. You cannot avoid it. In that case, you have to mitigate it. Now mitigation is you will write a strategy which will try to reduce the problem of failure. The new requirement coming in from the customer will be taken at the same time. You will put the best employee of your company, best designer of your company, best implementation expert of your company to do this particular requirement, because you know that taking this requirement is dangerous. At the same time, you can't avoid it. You have to mitigate it. You bring down the probability of failure. The moment you bring down the probability of failure, it is called mitigation plan. That is second strategy. Now third strategy. Now what's happening is there is a strategy where you can transfer it. You know that you cannot handle on your own. So now what do? You transfer it. One of the transfer strategy of risk which you can recall is our life insurance plan or health insurance plan. Now we know that there is a risk in our life. What we do? We get ourselves insured. When you insure it, that becomes a mitigation plan. That becomes a risk strategy, how to handle it. That's third one. Now let's fourth one. There is something called accept. Like how you have in positive as accept, in negative also there is accept. You know that that's a problem, but you can't avoid it. You can't mitigate it. You can't transfer it. And the next thing is it falls on your lap. You have to take it off. Even though you know it's the highest risk, you can't do anything there. Right? That's one of the strategy. Now, when I talk about all the strategy, again I have to talk about escalate. There is a very negative risk coming up, which is very huge in size, which we can't handle it. What we do, we have to pass it to the upper management. That is your portfolio managers and program managers. You have to intimate them, guys, I'm seeing our client may close this particular module. They're not happy with what we are doing. So that's going to be escalation. You have to pass to the upper management. This can't be done from our side. So that's going to be a escalation part. So that's about the positive and negative risk. Steve, are you getting some inputs on the positive negative risk strategy?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is what the high expectation from the manager where you have to do it. But I believe, Steve, you're doing it naturally. I believe this is all happening in your mind rather writing in a paper. You know that when it's such a risk comes in, what you have to do. Am I right on that point?
Yes. I always try to avoid them.
Okay, is your client accepting when you avoid it just like that?
So yeah, I try and put if I know they're coming, I put them in place. I put something in place to avoid it.
Oh, okay, okay. But generally, you may not able to avoid, right? The client will push you back, telling that no, 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 we want it, do it anyway.
Yeah, we've had those too.
Okay. So in that under that situation, you may go for mitigation. You have to do it, but at the same time, you shouldn't spoil the relationship.
Right.
Okay, okay. I think this all comes out of your own experience. Mm. When you started your project management career some years back, um, how was it? Was it easy or you had a tough time there?
No, it was brutal. It was brutal. Um,
Okay.
no, because I mean it's project management. The way I look at project management, it's all about organization. It's all about organization and staying organized and staying on top of things.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, Staying current with everything that's going on in your project. As soon as you start to fall behind,
Okay.
and it's when you start to fall behind and you don't know what one group is doing versus the other group, that's when
Uh-huh.
shit starts to hit the fan.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
for me,
Okay. I
it's
understand.
as long as I can stay current on what
Mm.
everybody's doing, where everybody's at, so I know where
Mm.
they're at on my timeline.
Mm-hmm.
As
Mm-hmm.
long as they're in scope on my timeline, everything is good.
I understand.
And
I understand.
and
Okay.
if I see the problems, that way I can see problems as they're coming versus all of a sudden
Oh,
just falling in my
okay.
lap.
Okay. I think you mentioned it. Being proactive was helping you.
Yep.
I understand. I understand. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I know this risk part is very risky that you have to be prepared ahead. You can't stay till the last minute until that there is a problem. Right. Right. I got you. That's good. That's good. I like the way you are looking at your project. Great. Okay. When you go for examination PMP, the exam questions will be going around this area. What you see in the screen, this is the area the questions will come through. They will give some scenario and make you to understand that if it is an opportunity, what you will do. If it is a threat, what you will do. What I feel is, as a Steve is having good experience, these questions should be easy enough for you. Very, as you have a real experience, you will easily handle it. Okay, we'll move. Okay, escalate, I think I explained it. It is something above or a level. It goes to PMO or it goes to portfolio managers where you can't handle it. In whole PMP book, this is the one area and they talk about escalating. If not, most of the things are expected to handle by the manager or the person who is taking charge to handle it effectively. But this is the only place they're given as escalation, and where they felt it, this is little high, which a manager can't handle it. You have to pass it to the next level. Now comes to implement risk response. Whatever you made a plan, whatever you made a strategy, that will be implemented. It is not mandatory that you have to implement, but it will be implemented in case it happens. So the risk is something which we thought, which we predicted, as you were saying, the forecasted, it could happen. But if it happens, what need to be done? As I take the same flight example, they show that if there is an oxygen lagness in the flight, you have to use a mask. It's being explained to us. Doesn't mean that it should happen. But in case when the flight is going 30,000 feet high and they're saying that, guys, we have oxygen lag, the oxygen mask will come down. So quickly you should know how to use it. This you would have observed when you boarded the flight. When you boarded the flight, the lady would have explained how to use it. If we have observed it and if we have a plan there, and that will be implemented. If not, it is going to be a problem. So now that is what we're doing here. We have a risk plan here. We have a risk register here. And if in case that happens, we're going to implement it. But one thing we have to notice, implementation is not that easy. When you are an individual, you can do it on your own easily. But when you have a team, the team may not listen well. In a sense, when a situation happens, people get into panic mode. People do on their own what they want. On the roadside, if there is an accident happening, even though we know these are thumb rules to be followed, but still people do on their own what they think. It is something like people get to panic when there is something risk happening. If it is a positive and negative, both the side, they lose the rhythm. They start doing on their own what they want. And there we need this interpersonal skills. If you watch out the screen, you have something called interpersonal skills, where you have to influence the people. We have to educate the team. Tell them that, hey, this is what we planned when we're in a calm mode. And this we thought earlier, it is not a new risk. We know this risk could happen. We have written a strategy plan for it. Just follow the strategy plan, it should work. Even if it doesn't work out, we'll correct it out. But don't get panic. So there we need this influential skills very much important. Interpersonal skills important, right? So when you do that, there's a possibility we'll get some issues happening. Don't think everything will be smooth. Some may not even like the way we are implementing it. Your stakeholders will come back on you. So those are the things will be recorded in issue logs.
Oh, you kind of faded out. You're fading out here.
Oh, okay. How is it now?
That's better.
Oh, okay. I think when I move my headsets little down, it's getting bad. Okay. Yeah. So it is something like implement risk responses. It's a time when it happens, we have to implement it. As a leader, we will have a visibility of what risk can happen, and we have to guide our team to follow what is being planned, because it is human nature to take a decision on their own. But as it is a project which is a billions of dollars being pumped in, and huge amount of time has been pumped in, we have to be very cautious on what decision we make, and we have to go back to the plans and follow the plans. That's very crucial. And of course there can be changes in the plan, but at the same time we should have a watchful what we return in the strategy, is it being observed here, right? So that happens in the implementation of risk response. Now it goes on monitoring the risk. Now I was talking about monitoring means most of the time it's policing activity. It is something watching out. Yes, we thought this risk could happen. Yes, we have a strategy to implement it. But now monitoring, watch out, have we implemented that in a way what we want? So that's being observed here. How to observe it? We have something called work performance data. If we remember it well, it is nothing but the actual data. What is currently happening in the project? We know that this risk could happen, and the risk happened, and the team implemented a strategy. Now we have to watch out, did they implemented the right strategy? If it is not a right strategy, we have to make a changes on that. And as I say, monitoring is purely watching out, are we following the plan? Are we going as per the decisions what we thought before we start this particular activity? And that monitoring activity is called as audit. Whenever you see a word audit, you should understand that it talks about checking the process. Audit is purely checking the process. Are we following the process what we have to follow? If not, we have to recommend come back to the process, as simple as it is. So a monitor is something like you keep a watch what we planned in the risk register. Are we doing it? If you don't do it, it will become a change request. If you do it, it is a decision saying that yes, we are going in the right direction. That is the information. Now the monitor risk is purely to watch out in the sense of the execution, how it's going on. And also one thing you have to keep in mind, risk is not there only in the beginning of the project. It can be in the middle of the project, or it can be till the last minute of the project, right? So risk could happen at any point of the project. So monitor risk will also have a visibility and keep watching out for any new risk coming up. If a new risk is popping up, that will be recorded under the risk register. Overall, I want to give an idea that a risk is something like which can happen at any part of the project, and if it happens, what action to be taken. If it doesn't happen, it will go out of the loop. We'll just remove it out, right? So that's about risk factors. Yeah. Okay, I have an audit and I have a video to talk about the risk which generally happened in the petroleum industry. I will just show a video of it.
Okay.
Okay, let me see. I have audio for you. Yeah, audio is there.
I don't have the audio.
You're getting it?
I don't hear anything for it yet. No.
It will come after some time. It will get done.
Okay.
The floating oil rig, operated by British Petroleum, called the Deepwater Horizon, was extracting oil from 1,500 meters below the surface of the ocean off the coast of the southern United States.
Then the oil rig caught on fire and sank.
Leaks in multiple places, gushing somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 barrels of oil per day, by current estimates, into the Gulf of Mexico.
Steve, I just stopped here. If you see here, the board and top management made no efforts in risk assessment, management, and communication, right? Um, why I stopped here is to show that risk is not something just like that happens. There is a team like us who managers or risk managers are there who will inform to the upper management. Sometimes upper management neglect it because of cutting down the cost factor, and that was happened in this British Petroleum, where they know that there is a risk going to happen because they're drilling for an oil rig where no other country or no other company has done it. even though they neglected it, and that had a massive impact. I believe you heard about this story which happened there. Steve, am I audible to you?
Oh, sorry, I had it muted. Oh yeah, I definitely heard about this disaster. I remember very well when this disaster happened.
Oh my God, it's a very massive disaster. It killed n number of animal and environmental stuff. And they know that this is a risk going to happen. Still, even though the mitigation plan was there, they didn't take it very seriously. They left it as it is. If you see that, it's the biggest disaster happened, and it's purely of negligence and purely of mismanagement there. Let me further play it down. Okay, just sort of bring you notice. Yeah. Okay. The risk, as is last slide I read through this video, saying that it's not risk about just avoiding. It is taking the right risk at the right time. We should take it. We can't say that without risk, human race, civilization happen just because we have taken a lot of risk. If you look back, our ancestors had traveled from one continent to other continent to find out a place for human being. They took a lot of risk. So risk is part of life. Without risk, you can't be there. But at the same time, we should have some mitigation plans, some of the strategies to handle it. That too, when you run a corporate, that too, when you are in a project, we are responsible. Being a manager, there are set of resources dependent on us, set of responsibility on us on our shoulders. So we take a little more care on that. That's very crucial. And one other thing I want to show you here, there is something called expected monetary value calculation, where risk is calculated by multiplying the probability and the impact. If it is a probability of 70%, impact of $1,000, so 70% on $1,000. So that will be the risk weightage, or it's a risk happening. That's how the calculation happens. So what we'll do is we'll see a couple of questions in risk management to understand how much we have the base in risk. Yep. Try out these questions for risk, Steve. Let's see.
Let's see. Teams work diligently to identify large number of risks in a pharmaceutical development project. At this time, the risk register includes risks related to government regulations, risk in production testing, even the flooded market, and potential risks. While proceeding with the project, these risks must be assessed, and a risk response plan must be developed for the highest ranking risks. All following factors in the risk assessment of project risk, except risk events, risk probability, amount at stake, and insurance premiums. I'll go with D on the first.
Oh, God, you rocked it, Steve. That's the right choice.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you
Obviously, your risk events. The actual event is what you're
yeah.
trying to predict or avoid.
Mhm.
Probability is, that's part of it. You got what's the probability it's going to happen. The amount at stake is going to be dictated by, or is going to be, I guess, would be the cost of the actual event.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
And I don't know that you can really take out an insurance premium on that.
Okay, I think you nailed it well. I think you got this question. They're asking accept that. So insurance premium can't be that. I can see your experience coming up. That's great. Amazing.
Project has a 60% chance of a $100,000 profit and a 40% chance of a $100,000 loss. The expected monetary value, EMV, expected monetary value for the project is. Oh, let's see, EMV. So that would be profit times risk, or 60% chance. I'm going to whip a guess out and say it's 20% or 20,000 C.
Oh, you did it. By the way, you are right on that answer, but how do you got it? Because I'll tell you.
Well,
Give it
I
right.
guess I look at your percentage your percentage of your percentage
Right.
chance of winning, getting a profit
Right.
versus percentage of loss.
Right.
If I've got a
Yeah.
60% chance of succeeding, 40% chance of loss, I'm
Right.
not going to lose $40,000. I'm not going to lose $60,000, and I'm not going to make
Oh,
$100,000 profit. So it's got to be 20.
oh man. Steve, you're top of it. You rocked. That's the right choice. What you did.
Yeah.
The explanation justifies. So I will put it like this. When you say this is a positive and this is a negative, right? So it will be negative here. Okay. So as you mentioned, what you said is right. 60% of profit and 40% of a loss. So plus into minus, it goes on minus. So it will become 40 minus 20, or 60 minus 40, it's going to be 20. So 20,000 as a profit part. Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
God sake. Risk is your game, I believe. You are playing well in the risk. Okay. That's impressive. That's see the calculation of what you made. 6%, 60% and 40%, they made a deduction. It's called expected monetary value, EMV. But it is absolutely right. You're right. You're right. We'll try a couple of more questions. I think it's slightly a little bit tougher for you.
Output of the plan risk responses process include plan risk responses process, residual risks, fallback plans, and contingency reserves, risk triggers, contracts, and risk list. Secondary risk process of the risk project management plan sensitivity analysis. Risk response plan. The plan risk responses, legal contingency, secondary risk triggers, residual risks, fallback reserves.
I will tell this will be slightly tougher because it talks in PMP input outputs. It may be slightly tougher for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna think output of the risk plan responses process include.
Just give a guess. Let me see.
I'm kind of leaning towards D.
You are closer, but what will happen is um, whenever we make a risk response, it is purely to handle the contingency reserve, right? So that's the one clue here, but I'll tell you this question is tougher for you because we're yet to read the process fully. Until then, you may not get the clarity. But here, the expectation is we will have a contingency reserve getting ready. That is, if there is a particular situation happens, how much fund to be allocated. So we talk about residual risk, fallback plans, and contingency reserve. The risk which still reside, even if you apply the risk response on that, the risk will not be closed. Still, it will be open. And fallback is something we try another strategy when it doesn't work out. So this all will be the output of risk response. Anyhow, it is purely about the book knowledge. Probably you may not get it now. Once you read the book again, you will get it. No problem. This the question is expected tough question. Yeah, try the next question.
Workarounds are determined during which risk management process?
So when you will try workaround, only after you apply it.
So workarounds you're planning. I would say plan risk responses.
Yeah, in planned risk response, you written the strategy, how to do it.
That's when you're going to plan your. That's when you're going to be determining your workarounds.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Determining which risk management process.
Okay. In one place, you look out whether are we following the plan what we did. If the plan is not going as what we thought, we do some alternate actions. Something on policing activity.
Risk analysis.
Okay. In monitoring of a risk, what we do is we watch out, is that happening as we thought? If not, we'll try for some other options also. So monitor risk is a place where you can do that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, try the next one.
Which risk management process is the determination made to transfer risk? Determination to transfer risk. Let's go with B on that one. Implement the risk response?
Implement is you started utilizing it. Now they're asking for transfer risk. So I was showing some of the strategies how to plan. That is like talk about the exploit, enhance, transfer, right? And that was happening in the planned risk response. What I do is I'll quickly show the answers. Okay. C is answer for the last one. Transfer is a risk response strategy. Risk response strategy are determined in the planned risk response process. I know a bit tougher. This all goes in the book knowledge. Okay. It's not by experience knowledge. Whatever they explain here is a book knowledge. So it will be slightly tough for you on that part. What I do is I'll go back and show you what I showed to you. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Risk response strategy. Here we have something called transfer. This we did in risk response strategy where we write it down. That is planned risk response. Where we write if there is an threat on that, we'll transfer it. We have a threat of life in our day-to-day life, so we take a medical insurance or we take a health insurance or general insurance. So that's a transfer of your risk to the insurance company. So this we did in the planned risk response. So that's what they're trying to say here. If you look at the question, during which risk management process is a determination of transfer risk is happening. So that was happening in planned risk response. I completely agree. The last three questions are purely of book information of PMP. So it's not experience or scenario based. So it's slightly tougher for you. It's acceptable.
All right. Wow.
All right. Yeah, good. So we are good with the risk management so far. So what we'll do is we'll take a 5-10 minutes break. We'll come back and we'll start the procurement. Will that be good for you?
That sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah. Take a break. 10 minutes. We'll catch up again.
Sounds good. I'll be back in 10.
Sure. Steve, I'm back.
I'm here also.
Ah, that much good faster. So how do you manage your dinner? You done with yours?
Actually, I just went out and made myself some quick dinner.
Okay.
I'm having leftovers tonight.
Okay. Generally, what time you wake up in the morning?
Usually about 5:30.
Oh, then you have to go early to bed.
I usually get to bed about 11.
Okay. It looks like a packed day for you. You sleep less and work hard.
I work long freaking hours, that's for sure.
Oh, that's good. The leadership position is like that. You have to work a little extra to be a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll start with procurement. This is going to be our ninth knowledge area. So we are coming to the little more better shape now. I will just re-show what we have come through, traveled through. Right, in a screen you will see something we have traveled. Okay, we have just a minute. Okay, okay. Okay, so we have traveled like we have started with a stakeholder, then we did a communication, after which we understood the requirements. After requirements, we understood the schedule, then we understood cost. These three are called as triple constraints. Then we understood quality, we understood how much of resource we need for the project, and today we understood some on risk factors. Now one is pending out here is procurement. We're going to see the third party. How to handle the third party. It's a little bit smaller area where it talks about how a third party will be handled. Once you cover it, it will be of 9 knowledge areas covered. When 9 is covered, the 10th one tomorrow will do, that is called integration management. When you do that, that will cover 10 areas. Now, when you talk about the procurement happens in a project which is to attend certain areas which we can't do on our own. Vendoring factor is very common. I'm sure you would be much aware of in your project as well. If you take a project of requirement with 100 features to be delivered, we can deliver say 80 features, there may be 20 features which we can't do it on our own. So we have to go to some third party to make it happen. The third party could be a vendor who is good at market, who is expert on that field. For example, now we are communicating through an application called Zoom. Now, even though we have everything with us, now we need a dependency of a third party to make a communication between us. And that is a third party vendor for which you have to choose it. We have Skype, we have Zoom, we have WhatsApp, we have Facebook, we have a lot. But we choose one which meets our criteria, which is the standard what we want. So we choose the vendor based on the criteria which we set through. It is called as a source selection criteria. And also we find, do we really need to do it or we have to buy it? There is something called make or buy analysis in vendor management. There are certain areas which we can't do on our own. So we have to go to third party market. So that's what's going to happen in vendor management. We will learn those in this area and then we'll go for the integration by tomorrow. So now what I'm going to do is I believe I have a small video to show what is vendor all about. I'll show that part.
Oh, did you ask me a question? Did I miss it? I'm sitting here.
No, Steve. No, Steve.
Okay, good.
Steve. I'm just going to put a video to show you a vendor part.
Okay, I was crunching on a potato chip and I wasn't sure. I'm eating my dinner.
Enjoy it. I won't disturb you. So I'm just going to play a video to give a feel of what is vendor management all about.
Vendor Management, presented by Edexit.com. In this video, we are going to learn how the organizations manage their vendors. Vendor management refers to the process that helps the organizations to find the vendors, evaluate them, and ensure that they are qualified. Conducting business with the vendors. The process usually starts once the need arises to outsource a given task to a vendor. Organizations perform the following activities to accomplish vendor management: researching vendors who can perform the required tasks, negotiating and enter into a contract, price quotation, performance evaluation, preparation and maintenance of the vendor related documents.
Okay, Steve, I'm just stopping here. You have involved in vendoring part for your project. I'm sure you've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how do it happen? You have some selection criteria before you choose a person as a vendor for your project?
Depends what I'm looking for.
Mm,
But I've got
okay.
I've got the criteria that I need. So,
Okay.
if I'm doing uh, if I'm doing if I'm doing a tower
Okay.
and I have to get up 300, and I have to have a crane that can get
Oh,
300 feet in the air,
yeah.
I have to make sure that whatever vendor I'm going to choose has
Uh-huh.
access to a 250 ton crane that'll have a
Uh-huh.
350-foot boom that'll be able to get up that high.
Okay.
So I've got different vendors for different things.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you will also watch out their quality factors, how they deliver it. Are they
Yep.
having good track record? Right? So you watch it all the factors. Great. Great. Okay. Let's continue the video part.
And then then I mean I've got vendors for my consumable materials too. So I've got
Uh-huh.
consumables that we use on sites.
Okay.
So I've got my vendors for consumables, and then
Okay.
I've got vendors for my safety gear.
Okay. Machines,
Yeah.
safety gears. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you even get vendor for the human resource. You want some resource to work for you.
For a
So
temp agency. Yep.
yeah, time and material, you call some people to work for you for some
Mhm.
time-based period. Right. Okay. Okay. Sounds good. I think you should be good in this area. Let me play the rest of the video, then we'll go on.
Processing of the payments. The organizations research and come up with a list of vendors who can perform the task and deliver it with quality. All the chosen vendors are then evaluated based on the following factors: capability, pricing, quality, past history, or goodwill. Initially, quotations are obtained from each of the vendors. Their references are checked, and then the company researches thoroughly through online resources. Once this is done, their financial stability, certifications, and insurance details are evaluated. Once a list of vendors are chosen, the responsibility of the vendor manager lies in managing a list of vendors, allocating tasks or contracts when necessary. Keep a check on their performance. Ensure that the agreed upon contract rules are followed. Big organizations usually have a pool of vendors. Depending on the past performance, a specific vendor might be best suited for a specific task, while secondary preference is given to other vendors. When the preferred vendor is not able to take up a project or task or unable to deliver, then the other vendors will be allocated with the assignment. Vendor management usually requires huge documentation work. The databases need to be integrated with various accounts payable systems. In this process, it usually requires obtaining vendor information like contact information, insurance or tax related documents, etc. When the vendors have access to confidential information, it is essential to get the non disclosure agreement or similar agreement signed in from them and documented. All such documents, thus procured, should be updated each year. That covers the vendor management. Thanks for watching. Edixit.com is started to promote.
Okay. See, what I want to put out is just give an idea what we do in the vendor management. I'm pretty sure you already done it, so you should be much aware of it. What we'll do is we'll quickly walk through what PMI says. Okay, you'll get in. Okay, here it goes. Okay, before getting to the vendoring part, there is one area which you have to water on contract side. I believe you talked about the train which you look out for, and you look at the contracting also with them. What kind of pricing factor you have to go with? You have to talk about the factor talking about is it a fixed price or is it going to be cost reimbursable or time and material? There are three types of contract being explained in PMI, PMP. Fixed price at a higher level, cost at a higher level, time and material at a higher level. Of course, there are a lot of contracts in the market, but PMP talks at these three vertical, little more deep inside. I'll show much more. When you say fixed price, it talks about where the price is set right in the beginning of the project. At a lump sum has been decided, say that $50,000 or $10,000 at one shot, and they decide it and start proceeding on. Cost reimbursable, as and when the invoice is produced by the person, the vendor, the bill will be paid to the person. So that's cost reimbursable. Time and material, it's a mixture of both fixed plus cost reimbursable. This is purely used for human resource augmentation or material. I think specifically your particular crane, which you said will fall under time and material. If you take yeah, you take this and you will tell that I'll utilize for a week of time, or you will tell that I'll use it for 8 hours. 8 hours into number of dollars, we'll pay for it. So yeah, that's how it goes. Let's see a little more on that part. Okay, in a fixed price model, it is something like you can go fixed price only when the requirement is very clear. When we know what we want very clearly, you can upright set the price and start moving towards it. And in fixed price, the risk lies on the seller. I'll tell you what is seller here. When we become a buyer here, when it's we, the project team, and the seller will be the vendor. Okay, so this is a case happens when you start the project. Of course, you have a customer. All right, customer. Okay. Now, here is a customer, and we are in the center as a project manager. You are the project manager here, or project team. All right, that's a project team. So you have the customer here, and you as a project team here, and you have a seller. What it means is, in your project, one part of activity you're giving to the another person, nothing but a vendor, and they are a seller here. So if I take this out, it will be like buyer and seller. We become a buyer and the person who is going to do vendoring part becomes a seller for you. In your case, your crane operator or crane supplier for the renting part becomes a seller, and you become the buyer. Now, if you go for a fixed price contract, telling them that, okay, give me the crane machine for a week, I'll pay you $1,000 upright. It is something like fixed price. Fixed prices you pay upright what, but there is a slight risk on that. In the sense, if the usage cost goes higher, if something cost goes higher, the risk will fall on seller, because a buyer pays $1,000 and takes a machine, not machine, any project activity to be done, and there is a good chance that the price may shoot up later in the future. Whether to shoot it up, that's a responsibility of seller to bear that money. So if that is the case, seller takes the risk here. In fixed price contract, seller will take the risk, buyer enjoy the benefit. And when that's a scenario, in fixed price contract, there are subdivided into three contracts. One is fixed price, firm fixed price. You will tell that this is the amount which we can pay. That's a firm fixed price. A cut right money will be set out. There is a second type which is called as firm price incentive fee. The word incentive is comes out of the performance. When the seller does a best job, if when seller does a best job, the buyer will give them some extra or added money for the work has been done. That is firm price incentive fee. Incentive is based on the performance of the particular seller, and this will be in the agreement. When you sign the agreement of the vendoring part, they will sign agreement saying that if your performance is really good, we will pay you 10% of the overall cost. So that's again incentive fee. The third one goes on fixed price with economic price adjustment. I like this one really well, because economic of price adjustment goes like this. You and the seller signing agreement, and there is good amount of inflation in that particular season, and price shooting up very high. Now we don't want to tax the seller too much. Seller is signed agreement with you, but at the same time they put economic price adjustment. It means if there is an uneven fluctuation in the market and the prices are shooting up very high, now the buyer and seller both will share it, rather putting everything on the shoulder of the seller. Now, point I want to convey here is fixed price has some classes under that, which can be a firm fixed price, or with incentive fee, or it can be economic adjustment. Okay, that's how it goes. This is for fixed price. Now let's see for the next one. Cost plus contract plus. They called as cost reimbursable, and this case applies when the money is being reimbursed when and where the bill is getting produced. Your seller will come to you, or your vendor will come to you and give you a bill to you. Hey, out of your project, I did this kind of activity. Pay me $1,000 this week. Next week, another $500. Another $500. You keep paying the bill until they complete the work. To really iterate it really well, let me take this example. Your project has, say, 30 features to be delivered. You are doing 20 features. Your vendor will do 10 features, right? Because you know that those 10 features can't be done by you. So you went to the vendor. The vendor is doing 10 features for you. Now for the 10 features, the vendor will be coming out with a bill. Every time they complete one feature out of it, they'll come and show you an invoice, and you have to pay back them the money. That's what vendoring part going to be. If you see cost plus contract, you will see cost plus fixed fee. They pay the bill what they have done for the one feature or 10 feature here, plus they'll pay some fixed fee. Fixed fee can be of $100 or $200 or $1,000. It depends what the agreement is signed. The second one goes on cost plus incentive fee. Cost is they pay for the 10 features what they did, plus incentive is on the performance. If the deliverables are really quality good, they have delivered on time, we look at the performance and give them some better money for them. That's again cost plus incentive fee. And the third one goes on cost plus award fee. The word award, it means purely on the satisfaction of the customer. Now, when they deliver the 10 features, when you really feel it's really good to be awarded, then they give an award fee. But it is not mandatory. Award is always not mandatory. It will be on the best or good customer satisfaction. Now here, cost plus means it's purely reimbursable or invoice-based bill claim. So they will incur the cost, whatever it is, and they will produce a bill to the buyer, that is you, and you will be able to reimburse the money. When you do that, you do three variety. One is you do fixed fee. You'll give some upright saying $10 or 10% of overall cost. Incentive. When the performance is really good, you sign an agreement that whenever you do such a good performance, I'll pay 5% more than what you're rising for the bill. That is incentive. Award is something purely based on customer satisfaction. Here, there is no specific legal bonding on that, but you'll tell that when things are going really well, we'll give an award. So this is on cost plus contract. Now let's see one more, which is time and material. I'll come back. Time and material. I think this is what you're doing in your project. In time and material, it is called as a hybrid arrangement with aspects where cost reimbursable plus fixed price both join together. Nothing but you take a material, you take a human resource, and you will pay for the number of hours it's being used. If it is a human resource, for a human resource, they pay a number of hours. Say in a day, 8 hours, in a week, 40 hours. So it will become 40 hours into $10 per hour. So they calculate it and pay it for that money. It's on time and material. If it is a material, you take a machine and you pay for it, the number of hours you're going to use it. And what is the risk factor now here? The risk will be equally. Risk will be taken by both the party. You buyer, you will also take a risk. The seller will also take a risk. Let's see that here.
You've got an added risk too to the buyer on that as well.
Sorry, repeat it again, Steve.
On a time and material project like that, there's added risk to the buyer as well. Seller, because the seller is on the selling or is on the selling end of it, on the getting paid aspect. You have to walk and you have to set milestones.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
You have to set milestones and gauge their performance based on those milestones, because otherwise what can happen is if you get a seller that comes in or you hire a contractor on a time and material basis,
okay,
you're not watching and you're not setting milestones, there's no incentive for them to work, for them to be fast and efficient.
Got it. Yeah, sounds good. I can see the experience and knowledge coming out from you. That's really great.
Yeah, so you gotta have miles. And I don't think they had miles. Or if you go back one slide.
Yeah.
Cost reimbursable. They one forward.
Sorry, forward. I said.
Yep,
okay.
That one.
Yeah.
Cost reimbursable fixed price. It is a fixed price, but it's not. Technically it's not a fixed price because it's a variable price, because granted your per hour cost may be the same, but your hours are the variable.
Oh, you can't go with the fixed hour. Okay.
Right, because you don't have a fixed hour. You don't have a fixed time. You have a fixed price, but you don't have a fixed time frame.
Yeah, you're right.
Which puts you as the buyer. I like doing all my stuff time and material, but at the same time, I need to have a handle. If I'm calling someone out to do a job, and I'm paying them $300 an hour to do the job, and I anticipate that job taking 7 hours. If they're not done in 9, I'm out there asking why isn't this done? What the hell's going on?
You're right. Yeah, you're right, Steve. But Steve, one more thing. When I see some of the IT organizations, they take people as time and material, and what they do is they fix it something like this: per day 8 hours they'll work, in a week they work 40 hours. So we will give them only for 10 weeks. So they'll be paying only for 400 hours time, even though they work less, they work more than 8 hours. But the billing happens only 400 hours.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so there's a possibility that it can be fixed within the timeline, but even though they work less, little extra, little less.
But
Okay.
the only way you're going to get those extra hours out of them at no cost is if you have a milestone that they have to hit.
Yeah, it goes a milestone. Okay.
Yeah, you got
Okay.
to have a milestone out there, because if you buy 400 hours to do a project, it should
Mhm.
take 400 hours, and they only get 300 hours out of the 300 hours of work done in that 400 hours you paid for.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. That makes sense. What you're saying is a sensible one. Yeah. Right? Good. I like the experience you're sharing. Okay, let's move on. When you talk about risk factors, I have just put a scale like this, which is from the one of the website, where they say that cost reimbursable, where the buyer has a higher risk, where the seller risk is a little lesser, because as you want to reimburse, it means that you are going to pump in your money. So cost reimbursable, where the buyer bears good amount of risk. When it is a fixed price, seller bears a huge amount of the risk, where the buyer is little safer there. And when it comes to time and material, it stands in between, where the buyer as well the risk seller get the risk. But what I understand from Steve is buyer is having more amount of risk happening around, right? If the milestone is not set properly. Okay, okay, I'm getting the point here. Thanks, Steve, for adding that point.
Yeah, see, I see, I see a time and materials I only use when I can't get a fixed price. When I can't get, if I need
Mm-hmm.
I'll use a lift for an example. If I need a man lift out at a site,
Okay.
I
Okay.
buy that lift, and I'm basically paying time and materials, because I'll be paying $600 a day to have a lift
Uh,
out at the site. And
okay.
and in this case, like I said, if I have to have an idea of how long I need it out there,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
seller has no risk,
Yeah,
because
you're right.
he has no risk, because he's just got his whatever is sitting out there, and he's just getting paid $300 a day.
Yeah.
The risk on my side is that it's not being that those days that I'm paying for, the asset that I'm buying isn't being used efficiently. And that asset that I'm buying is either I'm buying time
Mm-hmm.
from the seller, and if
Yeah.
the seller isn't utilizing his time efficiently, I'm paying for it.
True. True. Makes sense. Makes sense. Yeah. Good. Good observation. I like it. Okay, let's travel. Okay, these are some of the contracts running through. It doesn't mean you have to memorize all, but understand there are certain contracts for cost reimbursable, time and material, fixed price contracts, right? They have short terms here. Cost plus fixed price, it's become fixed fee, CPFF. CPPC, cost plus percentage of cost. Cost plus incentive fee. Why I put all this stuff here is in exam questions, you may not get the full explanation. They may give a word something like TM. TM means time and material, you know that. So FP means fixed price. So just get an understanding that sometimes the short term will be used in the examination purpose, right? So there are some key terms used in contracting. I believe you should be aware of it. Something on request of information, RFI, RFP, request for proposal, request for quotation, purchase order. These are certain terms used in vendoring part. We're going to see what it is in future, but for now, understand these are terms used there. It's common terms. And SOW talks about statement of work, which we request the vendor to do it for us. And quotation purely has certain key details. Is a response by the seller to a request from the buyer, contains the commercial terms. This is very important. And this is a place in quotation that give the commercials what they believe is the best offer they can do. That's the commercial part. An NDA will be signed between the buyer and seller when there is an agreement is happening, because it should be very secured on the data what we are going to pass through. And letter of intent is nothing but an interest being were issued by the buyer to the seller to indicate that he is interested in carrying on work with the seller, right? It's mutual agreement or mutual handshake is going to happen. Before that, we set the ground ready and some of the terms and conditions details. Now let's see how it's happening. In plan procurement, there are a set of items here. Out of all, I would expect you to look out one very important, which is called as make or buy analysis. Now, what is make or buy analysis is we watch out, can we do this on our own or we have to go outside? As you said about the crane, if you have a own crane, you may not think about vendor. As the crane is not your day-to-day activity, you feel that it is not my stuff. So always I'll go for buy or make it. So in this case, it's going to be rent it out. You're going to go out and rent the material what you want. When you want to rent the material, you have to know the source selection analysis, which is nothing but to understand is they have the quality. Did you mentioned that it should go this many feet high in the air? Do they really have that kind of capacity? Do they have the rights to do it? Do they have any black mark in the past? Do they have proper accounting system being followed? Are they paying the tax properly? So you watch out all the stuff because you want sure your project should be successful. If your project should be successful, you should choose the right vendor for your project, which has a higher quality also. Now, when you do this part, you get the make or buy decision. And decision would say that yes, go ahead and buy it or rent it. Also, it has a source selection criteria and statement of work. The point we are trying to do here is we are just understanding, are we going to make it, are we going to buy it? As simple. Only when this get done, you will be able to go to the next stage. The next stage is of vendoring part. Right. There is a make or buy decision put over here. There are some numbers given over. Steve, can you try seeing that which is best, whether to go for make or go for a buy?
Oh, let's see. Well, if you've got the capability, you're better off to make it.
Yes, you're right. If you have the capability. But if you don't have the capability, you go for a buy operation. And if you see the costing factor down, you will see there's a difference in the price tag. If you see it down, the price tag is slightly different here, slightly different here. The differential amount is around 90K of dollars. Okay, so it is not only by the cost we decide to make or buy. It is other parameters, as you say, the capabilities, and even if you deliver it, how sustainable we are in the market. So we have to watch out more factors before we decide whether to make or buy. And some of the organizations which is not specialized on that area, they go for buy rather than making on their own. Let's take a BMW vehicle. The BMW vehicle is very specialized in engine. Their safety in the car measures. The car has safety as well, good engine, but they may not be specialized in music system. If there is a new model coming up, BMW Y, it's a model, and it's a very luxurious model they're bringing up. They may be having all the facility what they want in the organization, but they may not have the audio system what they want, or a television system which they want to bring inside the a screen should be brought into the car. Now here they go for a buy option. They decide that guys, we are so good in the market. BMW is very famous for the engine, very much famous for the luxury, but we are not good at audio system. So what do? I take that part and give it to the third party, and that is purely on make or buy analysis. If imagine BMW can come out with their own audio system, yes, it's possible they can do it, but that's not their core business. That's not a sustainable model. They can't do it for a long term because you give a car with a good music system, it goes on. After 8 months, they come back telling that, you know what, the audio is not working well. Now BMW has to do service on the audio system rather doing service on the engine. So most of the company look at what is their core area. If their core area is really clear, they'll be fine. Non-core areas, they'll go to third party. And for the third party, that will be their core area. In your case, operating a crane is not your core area. You are into different activities. But there's a vendor who is good at operating the crane, so they become the vendor for us. So now, make or buy analysis helps to understand whether to go or to buy. So once you do that, that's the next first stage of starting the vendor part. If you read out this screen, in make you will have some strategic move. In-house expertise should be there. Availability should be there. Availability is the biggest thing. It's not a one-day game. It's going to be long run. And in buy, if you see direct and indirect cost will be there. Third party risk. The company which is going to work with you will bring their own risk. Already you have bunch of risk. As you saw the risk register, you know there are a bunch of risks there. Apart from that, now third party will bring some risk. Legal considerations will happen. Now, there is no right, no wrong question here. It is purely dependent on the situation, purely depending on the need. If there's a very urgency in your project, then you need a vendor to go. You may not be able to do on your own because it will eat a good amount of time and some energy. There is some source selection criteria. If you see the center, there are four boxes: financial criteria, technical criteria, performance, security. So you watch out some of the factors before you choose a company. You may not do just like that. You watch at all the factors. Are they really good in the market? After doing that part, there is something called conduct procurement. And this is the one area where we do the bidder conference. If you have heard about it, there is something called bidder conference, where they call the bidders. Who are the bidders? The people who show interest on your project. You have to call them for a conference and explain to them clearly what this project all about. What are the benefits of this project? What are the requirements of the project? You have to explain it clearly. Only when you do that, the bidders will raise the request of, intent of interest, or they show the request of proposal. They start showing some interest in your project. And this bidder conference should happen without bias. I'll stress on this point, and PMP stress on this point. There is a good chance of unethical things will happen in the bidder conference. So to be very honest on that, they say go for unbiased way of doing the business here, because you have to choose the right particular vendor who can solve the purpose, who can give the best solution for your organization, for your project. Now that happens here. For that, you have to give advertisements. You will go with proposal evaluations. Now, after conducting the conference, you may select the seller. When you say select the seller, here seller is nothing but the vendor who is going to work with you. If you see here, it is in plural. It says sellers. It is not seller, sellers. It means when you do one bidder conference or one particular cycle of this actions, you will choose little more, at least more than one sellers. The reason being is, even if a seller one fails, you can go for seller two, because you don't want to conduct this kind of program again, which is an expensive process. When I say expensive, it could be time, effort, people, money, everything will be there, because it's not that easy to conduct a procurement process. It will be a bigger process. It's a money-oriented process. And when all are good, you sign an agreement. Now, let's take the example of a crane operation, what you did. Now, you made an agreement with the vendor telling that whenever I call you in this next 6 months, you have to give me a crane machine within 1 day of time. I can't wait beyond that, because my project is very critical, and I know that if I want a crane by Monday, I'll inform you by Sunday morning. The next day morning, I should see a crane here. And this will be the cost, this will be the contract, and this will be the mode of communication we both will use, and the timeline, and then the risk factors. This all be discussed and signed in the agreement. And now you opened up a beta conference, you have a people selected, and you also have an agreement. Now agreement is the one which makes you to start the work. When you share the agreement with another company, it is going to be a project charter for them. I'll repeat it again. We received a project charter, something called bullet train, some months or weeks back for us. The same way, we give part of our work to another vendor, and for that other vendor, The document which you are going to share, it's going to be the project charter. It is nothing but an agreement. Agreement means it goes on SOW, statement of work, and which is a legal document, after which you have project charter coming up. A point you have to convey is, as you have 80 features to be delivered, out of which 20 features are giving to the third party. Now, just by giving doesn't mean that they will do everything what you want. You have to keep a watch. How to keep a watch? That's where we have the next process. Before that, I'll show you how the conference would happen. For the conference, we need something called procurement document. I believe I showed these terms early on. Procurement document consists of packet of things, that is RFI, request for information. Then we have IFB, invitation for bid, RFP, request for proposal, REQ, request for quotation, and then they give the quotation. Quotation is very sensitive. Not only quotation, any procurement document is very sensitive. That's the reason they will have a legal department involving in this. They will have a specific procurement department involving in this particular operation, because there are chances that there can be some mistakes happening. Should be a bit cautious on that. A bidder conference may look like this, where you have a bunch of people coming together. They'll ask a lot of questions about the project, what you want to do, and what is their contribution, what is the benefit for them. So they'll understand all these factors. When only this has been discussed, clarified, and then the vendor will say, I am ready to go. And they start bidding the price what they want to do. Now you plan the procurement by deciding make or buy analysis, and you also chosen the contract of fixed price, cost reimbursable, time and material. And in conduct procurement, you made an agreement with the vendor saying that here on, anything we want will come to you on this particular project and you have to support us. You both made a mutual agreement. So that happens. Now, there is a stage called as control procurement. By now, you will be clear about control means something watching a policing factor. You watch out, are we doing as per the plan? If not as per the plan, you have to make the corrections. To see are we going as per the plan, we have something called audit. Audit will always check the process. It will check the process, are we doing as per the plan? And this is the only knowledge area where you have both audit and inspection at the same place. Audit will check the process and inspection will check the product. Now I'll put a little more clear here. I'll show you what it is. So what we have here is audit will check the process, whereas inspection will check the product. Deliverables will be verified. Right. So audit will check the process which we follow here, whereas inspection will check the product. What is a product? In our case, we have given a part of our work to the third party vendor. The third party vendor is responsible for delivering what we want. So we have to keep a watch on the deliverables. Are they delivering what we want? Because we are responsible to answer to our customer. Our customer is believing us and giving a project. After taking the project, we understand that we can't do everything on our own. So we went to third party. Now, when I deliver something to my customer, the customer may not know how many vendor you used in your project. They know only you as a face. And when you deliver it, they look at you. I'll take the same example of BMW. BMW vehicle is coming up in the market. We call it as only BMW. We don't call it by each vendor they use it. For audio system, they'll have a different vendor. For the tires, they'll have a different vendor. For the wiper, they'll have a different vendor. For the AC cooling system, they'll have a different vendor. BMW will have a number of vendors. But I don't bother. For me, I'll pay the money. I'll ask only BMW. Tomorrow, if audio system fails, I will not tell that the vendor is bad. I will tell BMW is bad. It is because the whole responsibility falls on the shoulder of the project manager. The same way in our project, if something happens, we take the responsibility of watching out. Are we following the norms and conditions? That's being checked in audit. And inspection checks out the product coming out of the deliverables from the vendor. So to do that, we have something called something called work performance data. Here, the work performance data is not from your team, it is from the vendor team. So far, work performance data was coming from your team to track how they're doing. And this is the place where vendors' work performance data, the actual report will come to you. How much they completed, where are they, what are the quality standards they are following. These kind of information will help you to check are they following what we thought. If not, we have to make some corrections, right? So that can become a change request. Now, what we want to convey and control procurement is we take the procurement plan, we have the reports with us, we have some of the agreements with us, and you watch out are we following it? And also, we see some of the deliverables coming out. That's why we have audits and inspection. Where inspection will talk about the deliverables. They check out is the product coming up really well. And that coming up, that makes you to close a procurement. Once you receive what you want, you'll close the procurement. I'll take the same example of a cranes. I don't believe the cranes will stay with you till the end of the project. You will use it for some hours, maybe some days, after which you will pay the money to the person and say that thanks for being here. But your project will keep going on. Your project will keep going on. In between, the guy came with the crane and did the work and said thanks and got the money and went off. So the same way in your project, you will get good amount of vendors and you watch out where are they. At the same time, don't think every vendor will be very successful. There may be some failures also, where you have to close those vendors, saying that no, we are not happy with what you did. Let's close the agreement. Let's close the contract. There may be some cases a project get closed. Leave the vendor part. Your project itself got closed for some reason. When the project get closed, you have to intimate the vendor, telling that guys, stop whatever you do. We can't pay money more than this because my client said no. You have to close it out. That also will happen. And apart from all this stuff, I want to show one thing very important in this slide, which is nothing but claims administration. In every vendoring part, there will be always a slight clash or slight misunderstanding or slight uncomfortness when it comes to claims. If this is not properly written down in the agreement, there is a chance claims can lead to some issue. When I say claims, it's about claims about the material, claims about the money to be paid. If your customer or if your vendor is not completing the work as you want and still they want the money to be paid, there could be some problem. So claims administration is to help the team to have a sheet, to have a plan, to understand how claims related issues will be handled. Right? I'll show something called, there is something called ADR. ADR, alternate dispute resolution. There's something called ADR technique, which is nothing but alternate dispute resolution technique that will be used in claims administration. Why they use it is there is a high possibility that you and your vendor can go for a tug of war. You and your vendor can have a hotter discussion, taking that no guys, we can't take it further on. It could be some heated argument happening around. Now, in that scenario, PMI, PMP recommends that you may not need to go to legal immediately because when two companies are having a fight, it will end up in the legal. And they say that before even you go for a legal, have some alternate dispute resolution written down in an agreement document, telling that if something goes wrong in next 3 months, we will follow the steps like this. We will first investigate the root cause. We will have our experts will talk to the team. We will look at all the invoices, bills, and track record of what you did. Even though that is not clear, even though we did all the analysis, still we have some issues, then they go for legal. Legal is a very last option given for vendor management. Try solving within your team. That's the first suggestion given by us because the moment you get into the legal factors, it's a never ending story. And also, whenever you get into legal, your company will be blacklisted because it may not know that's your problem or the vendor problem. The moment you go to the court, you'll have your name being listed saying that you have some problem happening. In future, nobody will come for a project with you. So they'll be very cautious. That's the reason major companies, whenever they get an issue, they upfront set the money and close it off. Because they don't want that to be legal operation. Now, what is control procurement? Control procurement is to watch out what we thought in procurement and conduct procurement. Are we following it? Are we following the agreement as we described? If it is not, make corrections. If it is not followed, make the team to follow it. If we follow it, it is good to proceed forward. So that talks about control procurement part. By the way, Steve, have you ever faced any heated discussion with your vendor or any climb related problem happened?
Yeah, I've had some heated discussions with them.
Okay. Okay. Is that on
Yeah,
the quality of deliverable or on the money payment issue?
usually it's on money payment issues.
Oh man, that's so tough. So how do you handle it? Was it so sensitive and complicated?
It's more or less, depending upon what the terms of payment are. Usually our terms are net 15. If they're running late, I can do a stand down on my crews.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got things I can do. It's, usually we're able to work around it.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a delay in payment, they may come back and say, oh, well, we didn't get this or we didn't get that.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So
Got you.
sometimes it's something that we're missing, something that we have failed to turn in.
Okay.
Other
Okay.
times it's something that we've turned in that they've failed to see.
Okay.
There may be something where,
Mm-hmm.
where we'll be on a site, we'll close out the site, we'll have a clean exit report on it, and then 3 days later something will fail, something will go wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll come back at us and threaten not to pay us until it's fixed, and it's just like, well, we're
Oh
fine.
man.
So
Yeah. I understand. I understand. It's kind of a little sensitive. But we're a bit cautious on handling it because vendor is not a person who is going to stay with you only for this project. Maybe you need him for the next project. They need you in the next project. So it should be a long-term relationship. To have a long-term relationship, a proper mutual agreement should be there. Just with one project, you can't close a vendor. So the alternate dispute resolution ADR technique helps most of the time to resolve the issue. It is because this ADR is written in a calm mindset rather than a fighting mode. So it will be a little more clear enough what need to be taken action. So we'll talk to them and try to resolve it. That the more you try to resolve out of court is appreciated.
right.
As we see from the PMP, they insist that stay out of the court for a while. Really, you guys can't solve it. Maybe the last option is try for legal. So that's a opinion given here. And yeah, here to go to the closed procurement. It's a very important legal part because a procurement is not properly closed can lead to some issues. Vendor part should be properly closed. You may think that a project is closed, so vendor will be automatically closed. No, there is no automatic process. If you do a project and you have some vendor activity in the project, it should be officially closed, telling them that, guys, we got what we want from you. This is my invoice and this is your invoice. This is my document, and we're officially closing today. Why? Because if you don't close it properly, in future, your vendor may come back to you and ask, you know what, last 6 months I'm waiting for you. So my bill rate is this, is you have to pay me money. If we don't close it properly, there is a chances that the legal issues can start up. So we have to properly close it down in close procurement part. When you will close it, if you read the first line here, the buyer usually through its authorized procurement administrator provides a seller with a formal written notice. If you watch out, formal written notice that the contract has been completed. It's very important to be very formal. You cannot tell that in the over the phone I said to you, over the text message I said to you, close the contract. It may not work. It should be a formal written notice where both the parties sign in the document telling that I received, I'm closing this particular contract. That makes a systematic approach. Right. So now what happened is you started with identifying make or buy analysis to understand do we need to buy or make it. After you understand you have to buy it or rent it, you went to the conduct procurement where you opened it for the bidder conference. Many people came for the conference and some say that I will do it. And that's happened the request for information, request for proposal, quotations, you got the money details and agreement getting signed. An agreement can be of fixed, cost reimbursable, time and material, any agreement you choose. After agreement is happening, we watch out, are they following the process what we want? That happens through audit. After audit is completed and the work is get completed, we do the proper close of procurement. Closing procurement is legal signing document, that is a formal document to say that the person has delivered it and as we want. Even if it is not done, if some issue has happened, you have to record it. We are not happy with the vendor, so we are closing this particular vendor part. So this is done. That makes your vendor part handled. Okay, that sounds good. The key takeaways, I would recommend to see this point where Pure talks about three types of contracts: cost reimbursable, and time and material, and also goes on a fixed price contract, all right, which is also called as a lump sum. That's a crucial part. And also in contracting, very important thing is called as ADR, alternate dispute resolution technique, where you don't go to legal immediately. First, you try to solve within us. If it is not, then finally go for the legal part. Okay, that talks about vendor. Let's see a couple of questions in vendor. Steve, can you try these questions? Steve, I can't hear you if you are in mute.
Oh, sorry. First one I think is going to be C.
Oh man, you are rock on that. I think vendoring comes smooth for you. Okay, that's right. Go to the second one.
With a clear procurement statement of work, a seller completes work as specified by the buyer is not pleased with the results. The contract is considered to be procurement statement. I would call that contract incomplete.
Okay. See, I will go by this now. With a clear procurement statement of our SOW is very clear. A seller completes work as specified. You have to underline this part. Seller is the person who is going to give you the material. Imagine you are the buyer, the seller. Seller completes as specified. This as specified is very important. Okay, it means that the person has met the requirement what is asked for, but the buyer is not pleased. Now it doesn't matter. See, buyer not pleased, fine, we have to address it. We have to understand why he is not pleased, what made him to be unhappy. That's different. But as per the contract, work is completed.
That makes sense.
Right? So can we call it as completed?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But at the same time, I should go back and see, guys, why are not pleased? I'll try to help you. That we can do. But as per the contract, it is done because it says as specified. It's very key term here. Okay. So that's how it goes. Yeah. Let's try the next question.
Government standards, guidelines, and best regulations involve you need to structure the procurement document in order to get proposals from qualified prospective sellers interested in the business on the project. All of the following statements concerning procurement items are incorrect, except for.
This kind of question is slightly tricky. Incorrect, except it means one is correct out of all these four.
Well, only one of these is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So this guys use a word like that. Incorrect, except.
All of the following statements concerning are incorrect, except for there's one correct statement.
Yes, you have to read one correct statement out of the 4 regarding procurement.
No, that's wrong. No, should not. No, that's wrong. It's going to be A.
Oh man, you did it.
Yeah.
How you got it? That's not. Here is a little flexibility. Okay, procurement document must be rigorous with little flexibility. No, it is not the right way.
That's not right. No.
Procurement document should not include the selection criteria. It should include. It is not should not. Okay, and well-designed procurement document do not include procurement. It include procurement. So all these 3 are wrong. If that is the case, a well-designed procurement document can simplify comparison of responses. Yes, that's the right one.
Yep.
Amazing, amazing. Erika, I mean, Steve, you are the one person to answer this question so far. In many batches, I've seen this question, nobody answered it. Okay, you are top of it. Amazing. You got all the answers. Good. Okay, let's try 3 more. So we will close for the day.
The seller is told by her management that the project team should do whatever possible to award its objective. Incentive clauses in a contract is to seller is told by her management team that the project team should do whatever possible to be awarded incentive money.
Slightly tougher questions. This one.
The incentive clauses in a contract is to primary objective of an incentive clause is to reduce costs for the buyer. Help the seller control costs? No. Synchronize objectives? No. Reduce risk to the seller. Shifting it to the buyer.
The primary objective.
I think I'm going to go with
Incentive clause.
I'm going to roll the dice and go with A.
Okay. The reduce the cost for the buyer. Okay. Okay. Let's leave the first sentence. The second sentence talks about the primary objective of incentive clauses. Incentive clauses is to it's to make both the party feel good. Incentive clause is not for one party, not a buyer, not a seller. Not a buyer, not a seller. Because incentives are made to feel good for the seller to give the best quality of product. Incentive clause also makes a buyer to keep a hold on the seller, telling that if you do well, I'll give more for you. Right? So if that is the case, are we trying to synchronize something here?
It would be C. Yeah, synchronize objectives.
Yeah. But at the very top level, it looks synchronizing. We are trying to synchronize objectives so that the primary objective of incentive clause, incentive is boost the person. So what's the objective of boosting it? It is to synchronize the objectives, right? I know, slightly tougher question. I agree, this is a tough question. Let's try the next one.
All the following statements about change control are incorrect, except fixed price contract will minimize the need for change control. No, I don't think so. Changes seldom provide real benefits to a project. No, that's not true. Contracts should include procedures to accommodate changes and more detailed specifications eliminate the causes of changes.
Again, this guy is using the incorrect except.
So there's one right answer.
One right answer is there.
Fixed price contract will minimize the need for change control. It's not A. Changes seldom provide. It's not B.
Perfect. It's between C and D now.
It's C or D. More detailed specifications eliminate causes of changes. I think it's C.
Oh man, you did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are right. Okay, yeah. I was a little worried you may choose the D.
No, because there's No, it doesn't matter how detailed you get. There's always
Possible.
always going to be changes.
Yes, absolutely. You are there.
No matter how detailed you get, shit changes.
Yeah, it happens. You're right. Okay, we'll try the last question for the day.
Routine audit of cost, reimbursable contract determines if overcharges are being made. The contract does not specify corrective action. The buyer should.
Here, the keyword is contract does not specify corrective.
See, that's what I was talking about. Put those milestones in. I was talking.
Okay, now you are stuck in such a situation. What you will do?
Specify corrective action. The buyer should. I don't know if the buyer really has any choice other than to continue to make the payments because he's in a contract.
You did it.
Yeah, he doesn't have any choice.
Yeah, you're right. I think this is another answer nobody has answered well. Many say that halt the payment.
No, you can't because you're in a contract. Then you're going to get.
I keep saying that, man, you can't do it because your contract says does not specify it. You can't do it.
Yeah. If you didn't properly word your contract, you're an idiot. You're paying for it now.
Exactly.
That's a mistake you only make once.
You nailed it perfectly. At the same time, they'll give an answer for it. I'll show that in the answer part. Yeah, you're absolutely right. See, halting all payment would be a breach of contract, right? And voiding the contract and beginning legal action is too severe and cannot be done unilaterally. Changing the contract to require more frequent audit does not solve the problem. A choice that said halt payment on the disputed amount would probably be the best answer, but it is not offered. The best choice available is to continue to make the payment while working to resolve the issue. That we can do, right? Good. That's amazing, Steve.
Yeah, good.
Steve, you are ready for the examination. I can see that.
Oh God, I hope so. This exam terrifies me. I've done a lot of I did years ago. I got my Cisco routers. I became a Cisco certified network engineer.
Great.
And I thought that was going to be a tough exam, and that was a tough exam. But I'll tell you what, I think that one's probably going to be easy compared to this one.
I know Cisco is a tough exam. I heard about that exam. I've not done it, but I heard about it. It's not an easy exam.
The Cisco CCNE, that was a bear of an exam.
Yeah. How many hours the exam is, Cisco?
It was a 4-hour exam.
Oh man.
And I think I finished it in 3 and I passed on my first try. So I mean that was pretty damn good.
Wow. So you're top of it.
So great. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I agree. PMP is slightly tougher, but I feel you are comfortable here. I can see you're able to understand the case and scenarios well.
Maybe I think once I get the study guide, and I'm going to go back on Amazon and I'm going to buy the flash. They've got 350 flashcards.
Yeah.
And I think I'm going to pick up those 350 flashcards. Yes. And the reading I've done, if I use those flashcards in correlation with the PMBOK book.
Yes.
That's what you need to do to pass the test.
Perfectly. You can do that. One suggestion would be is you have to go for at least 1 or 2 mock exams.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll do a bunch of because we get there's a bunch of test exams we can do right through the iLearn or Ismart, right?
Yes, you're right. You're right.
So I'll do all those. I'll do those probably a couple times.
As I see with your experience, question doesn't look tough for you. Only thing will be tough for you is the PMI terms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that will be the tough one because you have something in your mind already predefined. Now you have to unlearn that part and get what PMI trying to say. Same words in a different language. Right?
Yep, exactly.
So that's the only area you have to work out. If not, I feel in another 2 weeks you can clear the exam. It's not going to be a big deal for you. So just you have to go for the mock exam and see where you stand, then take a call of registering for the exam.
Yeah. All right.
That's great. Today I'm so impressed with the way you're answering all the questions. Amazing.
Well, good. That was kind of in my wheelhouse. That was all kind of stuff that that was good.
Great. So we traveled a long way. So what we do is that tomorrow we'll touch with integration management and agile concepts.
All right.
So provided we'll be able to close the session for tomorrow. If in case we something spill out, we'll go for one more day with a little more learning. If not, we'll be done by tomorrow. So that'll be the end of our session.
All right.
Right? Sounds good.
Sounds
Any
good.
other questions from your side? Anything to be addressed?
Nope. I think I'm all good with today's lessons.
Okay, great. How is your listening and how is the class is going for you? Are you able to observe things well?
I think it's going well. I think it's going well.
Okay, that
Yeah, it's
sounds
going very
that's
well. I'm happy. I'm very happy with it.
fantastic. Great. I appreciate it. Anyhow, we missed Eric joining today, so probably let him join tomorrow. So we will have a collective session because this is very important part. Integration is core, connecting all the dots what we learned so far. So
Okay.
let's see how it's getting connected by tomorrow.
All
Right?
right. Sounds good.
Okay. Catch up a good sleep. We'll catch up again by tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sri. Have a good night.
Hey, thanks you. Thanks, Dave.
Bye-bye.
Good night. Bye.